guide us and direct us in all the things that we say and do tonight, and that may any decision we make be for the benefit of the maximum number of people in the maximum area of our county. Um, Keep us safe until we come back to the next appointed time. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, next on the agenda is setting of the agenda. And Ms. Adams, you said you had one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We need to add for the board to take action to hold a public hearing next month for a utility easement for the training center down at the landfill location. Mr. Garrett has submitted a document that the board just needs to create this easement because they're putting underground electricity to the training center.
Okay, let's make it 5A. 5A. Anyone else? Okay. Next is citizen public comment period. This time is provided by the board to allow citizens the opportunity to address the board on issues of importance to the citizen. No individual citizen shall be permitted to address the board for more than 3 minutes. Anyone sign up? Does anyone like to address the board who failed to sign up? Okay, we'll move right along. We'll go into our work session. Ms. Adams.
Yes, sir. We're going to keep this as brief as possible. We're in a good place with our budget. We still have state numbers that we've put in as placeholders, anticipated state numbers, but until April 12th, we cannot finalize those. You have a sheet before you, and Ms. Marshall and myself are going to tag team on the budget discussion. But it's called Fire Department Contribution. And we have on that sheet the proposal at the top. You know, at some point in time, we talked about providing a lump sum to the departments annually rather than trying to rotate the fire truck payments. So Ms. Marshall put the sheet together, and you have a proposal at the top, and we did a 10-year time frame to give you an idea of what that would look like, as well as below that we had with the current contribution and how we did the 5-year rotation on the 50,000. That number can be increased or decreased, but over the 10-year period, you're looking at a difference of an additional $380,000. So that's something that, like I said, we put it as a placeholder in the budget. We can change those numbers. So after you look at this and review this sheet, if you want to make some changes, let Ms. Marshall and myself know, and we will discuss, you know, whatever your wishes are. Okay, at this time, you also have 2 sheets called outside agency request and departmental request, and Ms. Marshall's going to go over those with you now.
All right, guys. So we will start with our outside agency sheet. It should look like this. It is a single sheet. So what you'll see is everything that is highlighted in green is what is currently included in the budget. You'll see all of the budget notes to the right-hand side. That does include the new proposal that Ms. Adams was just talking about for the different fire departments. Obviously, this is all subject to change. If you guys would like to increase or decrease any of these items, you can see all the way to the right that there's a column that says Board of Supervisors approval. It would be helpful if you all were able to take a look at this and simply give us a check or an X for how you feel, if what we have currently budgeted is appropriate, or if you would like us to change that. Any questions on the outside agency sheet so far?
Oh, I got one question.
Okay.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading somewhere, and I forgot where it was located. But anyway, the Appomattox Tourism Committee,
That's
Sure.
level funded.
That is, it's the third down from the top.
Yeah, I think I got that mixed up with the chamber. Was that included in the chamber?
We level
The
funded that
chamber is
also.
right above that, yeah.
Oh, there it is, yes. Okay,
Again, everything in green is what is currently in the budget, but we are obviously able to change that if you guys decide that what is in the budget currently you would like to increase, decrease, whichever you guys prefer. And you are able to notate that in the BOS approval section of this
but,
worksheet.
yeah, my question was gonna be, the town doesn't give anything?
Are you talking about the chamber?
Uh-huh,
It's my understanding that they have not for the last couple of years made a contribution.
thank you.
Any other questions for the outside agency? Great. So the next sheet that you have, that we're gonna look at is the departmental request. That's the one that is stapled. And so you'll see it is very similar to the outside agency, but it does go down every department and their line items. Again, everything that is in green is what is currently in the budget. If there is a section that is not highlighted whatsoever, that means that there have been no numbers entered. So we do need your decision on those. You can see the FY '23, which is what was in last year, the 2024 request, what that difference is, and then the comments that were given to us by the department heads for those lines. All the way to the right, you'll see Board of Supervisors approval, again, just like on the previous sheet. And again, it would be helpful for us if you could give us a simple check or X, letting us know whether or not we can keep what we have, if we need to change that, increase, decrease, whatever you all prefer. There are a few items that were not necessarily funded, level funded, or the request, excuse me. That is going to be in the comment section. You'll see that if it's highlighted in green, we expressed what number we had placed in the budget. So the salary lines, a couple of those have been left because there is a 5% increase included in the budget currently. There are a couple of items, specifically sheriff, who is asking for 2 additional deputy positions. We have not funded those positions, but as far as the other salaries within that department, we have included a 5% increase. So if you will take a look through that, let us know, like I said, if you would like to increase, decrease anything, that would be helpful. And I know there's a lot of information there, so if you all need some time to look it over, and then just email myself or Ms. Adams to let us know if you have any questions, we can do that. Any questions so far on the department budget?
Any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you, Ms. Marshall, Ms. Adams.
There is one more sheet in front of you that I do want to take just a moment to explain. This is our expenditure budget worksheet. Looks like this. It's got about 20 pages. I did take the time to highlight certain columns. You'll see I numbered the columns 1 through 4. Column 2 and number 4 are really what you guys are going to want to be looking at. Column 2 is 2023, what we appropriated in that budget. And then column 4 is what we are appropriating this year so far. All the way to the right, you'll see it says difference between columns 2 and 4. That is just the difference between what we funded last year and what we are funding this year. So if you need to reach out to us for any questions, if there's not anything, if there's something on here that is not on the 2 prior sheets that I went over, feel free to ask us. And I believe that's everything. Ms. Adams, do you think that covers it all?
Yeah, and I would just like to restate what you mentioned about the difference. So any changes that staff has made in this proposed budget shows up in that column all the way to the right.
Any questions? Great, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you all, I should say. We can move right on here, can't we? Okay, so Mr. Jordan's not here, is that right? Okay,
Ms. Stephanie Keener is.
yes. All right, under appearances, we have Mrs. Stephanie Keener, Director, Small Business Development Center. Welcome, ma'am.
I'm just bringing my computer with me to keep my numbers in front of me. Can I bring you my materials, or would you prefer I give it to Kate?
Oh, whatever's,
Take one and pass it back. Every county has a little bit of a different method, so. But thank you for having me today. My name is Stephanie Keener. I'm the Executive Director for the Small Business Development Center that serves the Lynchburg region. We are one of 29 SBDCs across the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we are part of a network of hundreds of small business development centers across the United States and territories. Our funding is a match that comes from the Small Business Administration, so federal dollars that are matched with local dollars in order to operate our center. We do have an office in downtown Lynchburg, but we serve all of the communities in our region and are happy to always come and do things like this and talk to businesses in the community. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on how things have been going look, I've gotten myself way backwards. So last year, the small business for fiscal year 2021, fiscal year 2022, across the region, the SBDC served 121 clients in what we refer to as one-on-one business counseling. So the SBDC's mission is to do one-on-one counseling and also training for small businesses. Our training is generally free or extremely low cost, and our advising services, our one-on-one advising services, are always free and always confidential. So last year across the region, we met with 121 clients. 8 of those were Appomattox County businesses. Our average number of hours that we spend with clients is about 5.2 hours. Across the region, we were responsible for $3.71 million in capital formation across the region. SBDC clients created 55 new jobs and touched 651 employees, which were represented by the businesses that we served. And in Appomattox County alone, our current clients represent about $300,000 in annual sales across the county. They range from restaurants, retails, and services. And Concord-based Balanced Gymnastics was a 2021 SBDC success story. And I really want to shout them out because we worked really closely with economic development with that project, and that was a new business that located in Appomattox County. We also do training, as I said. Last year, we had 42 events that came out of our center at the Lynchburg region. And we have, a lot of those are on Zoom. And we had 836 registrants at our center. About 34 businesses in Appomattox County attended not just our SBDC's trainings, but trainings across the Commonwealth from other SBDCs. So, one of the great things that sort of came out of COVID is that we do a lot of training online, and businesses across the region, across our region, can benefit from training that's happening up at George Mason University, which is where our home office is, or all the way down in Southwest if it's something they want to jump into. And we track all that information, and we know that 34 Appomattox businesses did that across the state. Our most popular program is a program called Start Smart, and we do that every third Thursday of the month. We have a basic small business, it's called Start Smart, Get Your Business Up and Running, and it's sort of like Business 101. It is the absolute basics. Where do you go to register your LLC? What does that even mean? Those kinds of questions get answered in that program, and every person who goes through that program gets a link to a toolbox, what we call the toolbox at the end. It's really just a Google Drive. And inside that Google Drive, we make sure that we have pertinent information for small businesses. But one of the really unique things that we have is a sheet that refers every business to whichever county they're in to the startup links that they need for their county. So if you go into that toolbox and you're in Appomattox County, you're from Appomattox County, or maybe you're not from Appomattox County, but you want to start a business here, you can pull up the Appomattox information and get the business license application and all of the things that you would need connected to economic development in order to get that business started. We've had about 400 people come through that program since we started about 3 years ago. Some other quick notes. Our center is growing. We've grown from 93 clients in 2016 up to 125, did I say, last year? Can't remember. With a peak of around 135 clients during COVID, which doesn't count the folks who never filled out a form for us. We know we served about 200 businesses during COVID. And you may have seen in the paper that we're involved with the launch of the new Center for Entrepreneurship, which will also serve the region. We'll be partnering with other entrepreneurial ecosystem agencies across the region in order to help better support our entrepreneurs. That will be an open service, just like the SBDC. There's no membership or anything like that required to avail yourself of the services at the Center for Entrepreneurship. So if you know somebody that'd like to be a mentor with us, let us know. And that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan.
the number you quoted, the 8 businesses
Yep.
roughly, y'all, does that include people that might go to the office in Farmville, or is everybody in Appomattox sent to Lynchburg?
Everybody in Appomattox should be sent to Lynchburg, but we do know that some Appomattox folks go to the Longwood office, and we try not to be too, you go where your business is or you're most comfortable, right? So there may be some folks in Appomattox who head over to the Longwood Center. I am not privy to those numbers, but for training, I can see the numbers across the state, and I do know that most Appomattox County businesses come through training in our center, but the next biggest number is definitely from the Longwood Center. So yeah, so we're all part of that network. We try to share clients and if somebody over there, if they're doing a lot of business on that side, then they're better off at the Longwood office if they need services over there.
Any other questions? Well, we appreciate you coming by and paying us a visit.
Not a problem at all. I'm sorry I've got a little bit of the gravelly springtime voice. Happy spring to you.
And same to you. Have a safe journey back home.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. He's here. That's him, okay. Next, we have Mr. Daniel Jordan, High Bridge Trail Service Park, and Mayor Sarah Blackwell, Town of Pamplin. Good evening. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having us here tonight.
You going first? You want me
Go
to?
first.
All right.
Yours is fancier.
Well, it is. Well, Chairman, Board of Supervisors in Appomattox County and residents of Appomattox. I'm Daniel Jordan. I'm Park Manager of High Bridge Trail State Park, and I appreciate the opportunity to come out and speak with you all this evening. Part of coming out this evening is to talk about your park. And we now extend into Appomattox. It's about time, right? And it only took, I think, 10 years for us to buy Pamplin. So, but we were able to purchase it, and so I'll talk about that in just a second. But I do want to just give you all kind of a pulse of the park and what we're doing in the at High Bridge Trail and in the state. So for High Bridge Trail, just for this year, this fiscal year, we've done $64,000 in revenue, and so we're in the middle of our fiscal year. So we're up $14,000 from last year. So we're doing more programs and finding new revenue sources. So we're excited about being able to offer more to more people, and we're seeing about 140,000 people come out to the park a year. And with that, with electronic bikes or e-bikes, we're seeing more and more people come out to Pamplin. And so the west from Rice to Pamplin has become a really big corridor for bikes, and we're seeing an increase of people that are getting out where before with a traditional bike they wouldn't come out or they'd go 5 miles. Well, now with an e-bike they can go 20 to 30 miles, and so it's been an interesting change in recreational dynamics. As far as economic impacts, so Highbridge Trail itself, with our spending of the park, it's $827,000 economic impact to the surrounding counties. And so just with what we spend to run the park itself. This year we have a capital improvement project, $2 million, and that is our new visitor center. So this is our visitor center that we're building down at Camp Paradise on the eastern side of Highbridge. And so $2 million project. It's 2,500 square foot building, and we're going to pave the road coming in. But it's going to be the first true facility on the trail, and it represents an old train station. So the architect out of Lynchburg took the 1914 design of a Norfolk Western station and has transformed it into what's going to be our visitor center. And with that, the other side of our economics is we've added the value of parks in this area, 98 jobs, with 89 of those being full-time employment. So we commissioned an economic study out of Longwood with Dr. McNeely. And so just based on all the economics of what we make and the amount of people that are coming into the area. And so it's an added value of $6 million to this area. And then the other side of what I want to talk about, so we've expanded into Pamplin. So we have 1 mile left to develop into the western terminus. So right now, Highbridge Trail ends at Heights School Road. And what we're going to do is we're going to expand the last mile into downtown Pamplin. When we do that, we're going to close Heights School Road and make the main parking lot the Pamplin parking lot right there. That's catty corner to the old pipe factory. And so that will drive more people to downtown. And in order to do this, we have secured RTP. It's a Recreation Trail Program grant through DCR for $365,000. It's an 80-20 match. And so out of that $365,000, it's going to cost somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 to build the last mile of trail. And so State Parks is going to match that percentage, so we don't have to do anything else for it. But it will get us all the way down to the town of Pamplin. The only thing that's going to separate us now is those active train tracks. So we'll figure out how we're going to cross those at some juncture. And so, but the town has been a wonderful ally working with us. The Pamplin area Legacy supporters and the Friends of Highbridge Trail have been wonderful advocates, and we also appreciate Appomattox. Even though we were just now getting into the county, you all have been cheerleaders for us, and we greatly appreciate that. So I'll turn it over to Sarah now.
See, I like to follow him.
Most people do. No, I'm kidding.
Well, first of all, I want to say again, thank you for letting me come and speak to you this evening. And I had provided a letter, and I'm not sure if you guys have already reviewed the request that we have sent. We had originally received from Appomattox County for the parking lot project $50,000. As everyone knows, over the last year, there have just been really soaring costs in regards to being able to obtain materials and the cost of labor. When we went back out to start the project, it ended up the cost had gone up significantly. We had received several bids, and kind of the midpoint was $125,000, which was in the letter that I submitted. And we had originally were going to be requesting some additional funds this evening. I've reached out to Prince Edward County, and they have agreed to supply with the project some additional funding as well. However, on a bright note, we did finally settle on a bid with the contractors that had submitted bids, and this one was actually significantly less than that 125 midpoint. It actually, the total for it was around $80,000, which would bring our request for additional funding from 50,000 down to 25 from Appomattox County. And again, that would be for us to be able to fulfill this bid, so that we are able to complete the parking lot. As I said, I did meet with the Prince Edward County Board of Supervisors last week, and they did agree to support the trail project with $25,000.
And the last part, with the expansion into Pamplin, I did speak to Mr. Hogan about a letter of support, if the county would be willing to provide that. It would give, so with the 365,000 that would get us to the new parking lot, we have a NEPA, the environmental review, and we're having to secure 3 letters of support from surrounding entities to show that the community wants this project to happen. So, that's what I have.
So are you requesting additional funding?
Yes, sir. In the amount of $25,000, not the original 50 that I had submitted the letter request for, because at the time of that, the town council had not reviewed the final bid we received. It came in after the last council meeting. The bid that we received from BCC Excavating out of Drake's Branch, owned by Mike Tharp, was the bid that the town ended up voting on to proceed with if we were able to secure the additional funding.
Mr. Hogan?
Madam Mayor, just to clear, so I can make sure I understand. So the original 50 that we gave you, that was for clearing, and there were trees there, and
Yeah.
we had to grow up stumps and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and our original expectation that would have been able to fund the entirety of the project. However, there are some sewer lines that go underneath where this is, so some of the excavating is gonna be a little bit more complicated than originally anticipated. Plus, the cost of materials and labor over the last year, has increased
So
as
that,
well.
so that $80,000 bid that came in
Yes,
to finish it off,
yes,
part of that original 50 we gave you has already been spent
yes.
to
About
clear it, to cut the trees and clear it, so.
Yeah, as well as for all of the surveying and the plans by Hurt and Profit, and all of the site plans for the construction of the parking lot. So of the 50, we still have 36,000 of that left. And then, again, their estimated price for them to start within the next couple of months was 80,000. So we spent 14, we still have 36. And with the 25 from Prince Edward and hopefully the additional 25 from you guys, that would give us enough to finish the project. And for a small amount over, that would, if there's any unexpected things. But anything that we don't spend, we heartily intend to return to the municipalities equally.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming by,
Thank you
too.
for having us. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr.
Would
Chair.
that be next fiscal year?
I guess, Mayor, maybe I do have another question, I'm sorry. So if the board decides to fund this extra money, do you need it before the next fiscal year starts to get the project moving?
That I would need to discuss with the contract company, because off the top of my head, I don't recall what portion we have to pay up front to start. I believe that their start date they were hoping for it to be July, so it's right there on that fiscal cutoff. But I can reach out to them and find that out.
It might be helpful to know whether we need, if we're gonna do this, is the money gonna come out of this budget or the next budget?
Yeah.
And is it gonna could it come out of ARPA funding.
And what we received from Prince Edward County was from ARPA.
Okay, thank you. I didn't
I-
mean to make
Thank you.
didn't mean to make it come.
No, that's okay. If there's anything else, I'm more than happy to answer.
All right, hang on just a second. That prompts a question for me.
Sure.
So the balance of 36,000,
Mm-hmm.
okay? When do you think you'll utilize it?
Well, we have reached out to the excavation company and let them know that we've tentatively accepted their bid because theirs had a time frame of, I believe, starting in July. And off the top of my head, I don't recall. I was looking more at the numbers than I was at the time frame. So I believe that is when they were wanting to start, but I don't recall if they had indicated a payment schedule on there for that.
And approximately when would that be?
I believe it was July was when
July.
when they were thinking that they would be able to start.
And when they started, then that would pretty much eat up the 36.
Mm-hmm. But one of the things that they did indicate in the Prince Edward Board of Supervisors was a contingency on that they were willing to donate the additional 25,000. It was contingent on Appomattox doing the same.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss it. All right, floor is open for discussion on this project. Mr. Hogan?
Mr. Chairman, I would be in support of this request, both the letter of support for the park itself, just to help the state parks folks do what they need to do to get that western terminus in Appomattox County, and then the funding request. So it's with the work that's already been done, there's an additional $80,000 worth of work that has to happen to make that a true parking lot. So with the 36 that she has left from our original contribution, and then 25 apiece from each county, Prince Edward and Appomattox, that it's 86 grand. Like she said, leaving about $6,000 for contingencies and finding stuff that you didn't know was there and having to dig it up or move it or something. I think that's fair. I would be in support of it. If we could use the ARPA funding, that would be excellent. And I think we had some left.
I don't know that it's left, we had designated it, but we had overestimated a few areas, not sure what that total cost would be. So,
But we might have 25,000 in there
yeah,
that we
I
could
think we
utilize for
would.
this. Outside recreation was one of the specific
Creating outdoor space.
things that could be used for, so I think that's a good use for it.
That's music to the ear. Hearing that, knowing that. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle?
I just add my support also as a user of the trail and biking. I think it's a worthwhile project and one that brings people from other area into our county, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is there a motion then to approve 25,000?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the town of Pamplin's request for 25,000 additional dollars to complete the western terminus parking lot and to provide a letter of support to the High Bridge Trail State Park for the completion of that project.
Motion duly made, is there a second?
Second?
Further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips. Reverend Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Okay, next we have Mrs. Ashley Santon. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the board. It's so wonderful to see everybody out this beautiful, very cold spring evening. So my name is Ashley Sandman, CSA coordinator for those of you who I don't get to see as often. CSA stands for the Children's Services Act, which was this act enacted in 1992 that does an awful lot that very few people know anything about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about more of it tonight and help you guys understand not only the purpose and who benefits from CSA, but why it's important, and the trends that we're seeing these days in the realm of mental health, which has been a hot topic the last couple of years for sure. Do we need to angle that, Kayla? You guys might also have a copy of it in the board book. But wonderful. So just as a reminder, folks who have eligibility for the Children's Services Act include children who are in foster care, not just the children, but also the parents who are working towards reunification. So the parents who lose their kids to foster care, those folks also have access to services through CSA. Foster care prevention services, which anybody in the mental health realm has probably heard a lot of lately. We've really gone from a place of prevention over the last couple of years. And I'll talk more about that too, how that's impacted our numbers. CHINs, which are our kids, children in need of services. Those are kids who are typically served through the juvenile justice system. Special education children. And then we have a small pot of money called SPED RAP. That means kids who have IEPs that have access to certain community-based services to try to keep them in our home schools. So this first slide just kind of depicts a number of children that have accessed CSA over the last several years. We have certainly seen an increase in the number of children accessing CSA. And this only reflects the number of kids that at my office is paying for services. There is an entire another pot of kids that come through the FAPT process, the Family Assessment and Planning Team, which is something that I also oversee. And those numbers are not counted because we're not paying for services, but they still have access to the program to get recommendations and pick the brains of the professionals at the table. So this current fiscal year, right now, we're at 84 kids that we've served. By the end of the fiscal year, it's hard to predict where that number is going to be. So we are continuing to trend upwards for sure. So this is kind of how it breaks down. I've got FY 20, 21, 22, and 23 listed up here, and the number of children in each of those types of services in those designated years. You'll see that the majority of our children in the last 4 years have primarily received community-based services. So those are things that can be provided in the home, in the community, or at school. Those services can look like very traditional therapy, what you think of as talk therapy. They can also look like therapeutic mentoring, intensive in-home services, and a whole realm of other evidence-based services that are available to our children. Foster care is what you would traditionally think of as foster care, and those numbers you'll see have mainly stabilized over the last couple of years. When I pulled data from FY 16, 17, 18, and prior, we did typically have more children in foster care than we do now. I attribute this transition to what I was speaking of, those prevention-based services, really starting to work with the families early at the warning signs rather than waiting for situations to get so dire that children had to be removed. So those community-based services that you see those high numbers in, those are prevention-based services. Those are the services keeping kids in their homes. Private day placement is the one pot of CSA that does not go through the rest of the process as far as FAPT making recommendations and CPMT, which is my governing body outside of the Board of Supervisors, reviewing those recommendations. And so private day placements are actually children who are written through their IEPs in the school system to be placed into schools outside of the district. So those are a small pot of kids, but they impact an enormous part of our budget, and I will review that as well tonight. Residential treatment is a service that we try to not use unless we absolutely have to. So that's children who are placed into a facility, typically a locked facility, to receive therapeutic-based services. There's a lot of downsides to residential treatment in that they aren't getting to strengthen themselves with their family members. So oftentimes we send kids to residential and the kids might get better, but the families don't have to. So when they come home, things are usually back to where we started. And that's, and it's very stressful. It's very traumatic to pull a kid out of their family life and their school system and put them in a space. So we really only use residential when we have no other options. So again, we are trending down on residential treatment, and that's very intentional due to increasing those community-based services. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? I know it's so much information. All right. So these are our expenditures over the last several years in those different pots of money. You can see in FY21, we had high bars in just about everything. And I look back at our numbers that year, we definitely spent more that fiscal year than we have any other year. And I think back to coming out of COVID, that year was traditionally and very directly impacted by the fact that we could not transition kids out of any placement into another because of COVID. So we had kids who might have been in residential when COVID hit who couldn't come home because they were in a facility with 100 other kids and the risk of bringing them back to our community because of illness. And then maybe not being able to have, for those kids to have access to education when they came home when our schools were closed down. Also, same thing for foster care. We couldn't have parents going and having visits with their children because of the risk of infection. And so we had to prolong our kids being in these services. And then our community-based services, because our kids didn't have access to other natural supports like we typically do, such as sports and youth activities, recreation, and school, we couldn't take away their mentor or their therapist or whatever the case might be. It might have been the only thing they had during that time. So we had a really hard time ending services in FY21, which I definitely think accounts for the higher level of spending. You can also see that reflects what the number of kids in foster care, the spending in foster care that year. So far, right now, just looking at private day, this reflects year to date, this blue bar in private day. But we have encumbered right around $1 million for private day spending. So we anticipate spending at least that much on that very, very small pot of kids, about 22 kids. We will cross into about $1 million this year. So these are those expenditures. Looking at FY21, that long bar, that's what I was just expressing. Right now, our payments for FY23 are right over $1 million. It's hard to predict what I'm going to spend this year. Susan and I talk about this all the time. There was one year where I had my whole budget figured out. It was 2 days before the end of the fiscal year, and I said, well, surely I know how much I'm going to spend this year. We had 4 kids come into foster care the next day, the day before the end of the fiscal year. So there is no predicting CSA. We are heavily impacted by all types of, all of our different players that we interact with, so it's really hard to predict. I do think we will fall about where we typically fall, which is near that 1.8 mark is where I think. But like I said, it's hard to predict. Looking at services this year, I want to break this down just real quick for you all. The difference between utilization means the number of kids accessing the services, and of course expenditures, you know what that means, the amount of money we're spending on those kids. So this reflects specifically what we have done so far this year up through the end of February. It does not reflect March expenditures. So the pie on the left, that big piece of pie, 50%, that's community-based services. It was actually established in CPMT in fiscal year 2018 that we wanted to provide at least 50% of our services in the community. That was an intention. If we can increase our community-based spending, we can decrease that other very expensive level of care, such as residential and foster care later in the long term. So we're hitting 50%. Good job, CPMT. Good job, FAPT. It's great. You'll see over on the expenditure side, that 50% of our kids that are receiving services makes up a very, very small part of our pie, only 19% of our spending. In addition to that, our match rate for community-based services is only 13%. So we get reimbursed 87% of anything in that yellow pie chart, which is astounding. We save a ton of money by putting a lot of resources and energy into that community-based services. For the other levels of care, the other types of services, the reimbursement rate is, we get reimbursed 74% instead of that 87%. So you'll see the orange piece of pie, 22 kids making up 21% of our pie. That's our private day kids. Those kids placed through their IEP in the school system. They make up for 44% of our expenditure so far. In reality, when I do this month to month, it's almost 50% that we're spending out of our budget. Any questions on that?
Mr. Hogan.
So the day treatment numbers, are all of those kids placed in schools outside of the district, or are some of those kids having services by day treatment vendors or providers, but they're still here in our school?
All right, so they're actually private day kids, so that accounts for no day treatment services. Day treatment services would fall under community-based services, but we don't actually fund it, only insurance
So
does.
when I hear the school folks talking about day treatment and kids in school, that's not that category.
That's two different kids.
Okay.
They're doing the prevention level of keeping these, it's probably the same population of kids that could be in private day. They're doing the prevention side of it. They're keeping them in their schools, so that's considered a community-based services. So yeah, all of these kids are placed into schools outside of our district. All of the schools that our kids go to are in Lynchburg, so we do have 5, 6, and 7-year-olds getting on the bus at 6 a.m. for an hour-long trip to Lynchburg, and there are already kids that have significant needs. And so all of those schools, so if you ever hear of Rivermont School, yep, that's one of them. Beacon Academy is one of them. BRAC, which is Autistic Specific School, is one of them. And we do have another one coming, so I don't know what the school, I mean, I know we have kids waitlisted to try to get into more of these schools, so that's going to impact our numbers as well. Good question, though. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to keep moving. So just talking a little bit of the theme of increasing community-based services. Some of the benefits that we have in that is that it's incredibly cost-effective. Like I said, we end up only paying 13% of those services. They also strengthen families. It's one of our only service types that actually strengthens a family. And the majority, if you were to look through my expenditures, you would say, wow, Ashley, almost all of the services you're paying for is for the parents. And that's the truth. We do a ton of parent support services. It's a ton of parent coaching, evidence-based services that strengthen parenting and allow parents to kind of regain the control of their household so that they can help their kids get well. A lot of the trauma that happens in our community is cyclical. It happens from family to family to family, and it's passed down. So if we can strengthen the parents and make them well, the kids automatically get better. And so we put a lot of our resources right there. The downsides of foster care are obvious, but I did want to include them on here. It can be incredibly traumatizing for a child to be taken from their family, even if their family is what we would consider awful. It can be traumatizing for the family system as well. And it's incredibly expensive. It takes a really long time. If you had a child removed from your care by the court system, you automatically are going to be working for the next year to get them back. When I get the phone call, hey, we have a new kid in foster care, I can tell you right now we'll have that kid in care for almost a year or more. We have some that, actually we have one getting adopted this month, yay, that's been in foster care for 4 years. So we know it's a really long-term service and it's very, very costly. And then the same for residential. If a kid goes into residential, it's almost a guaranteed 12-month stay. Very seldom do we see anything less than that. It's incredibly costly. The kid loses not only their family system, but they lose their community as well, their school system, all the things that are normal to them. And then we run the risk of children getting institutionalized, which does happen all the time. So the more that we can invest in our community-based services, the healthier our entire population is. We've been very intentional about this the last few years. This slide really, so if you look at the orange bar, what you're looking at is our numbers over the last 6 years, including residential, the number of kids in residential care and foster care, versus purple line is our community-based services. So like I said, fiscal year 2018, we decided we're gonna beef up our community-based services and let's see if it drives down the number of kids that are coming into foster care and the number of kids we're placing in residential. And these lines very clearly depict that that has actually worked, and we've done a really good job of keeping kids out of a higher level of care by catching it earlier and providing them good quality services before things get too bad. Just to capitalize on that a little bit more, Community-based services on average per child cost about $5,000. Per day, it costs about $30 per child. And then you've already heard all the other positives. It strengthens families, keeps them out of a higher level of care, costs the community saves the community a significant amount of money. Foster care costs on average in Appomattox County, this is not like a state pulled data. This is what I've pulled from our data. $51,982 per child. They typically stay in an average of 246 days. That number would be significantly higher if it weren't for a handful of kids over the last few years that might get pulled into foster care and at their 5-day review, the judge returned them to their parents' care. If I were to take those few situations out, our kids easily spend over 500 days on average in foster care. And then residential treatment per child costs about $28,000, and to be clear, that is not all that's being paid for those children. We only pay the education portion of their stay. So when we think about taxpayer dollars, Medicaid is funding the rest of it, and it's about $10,000 a month that Medicaid is paying, on top of us paying about $28,000 for a full stay for a child. So it's an insane amount of money when you look at all the pieces. So that's why we're very intentional. That's why you see our numbers in community-based services. That's why Susan, when she gets my purchase orders and they're a stack thick, she knows that we're putting a lot of good resources into our community, trying to keep kids here, trying to strengthen our families that we have, and we're very, very intentional about that. Any questions?
Any questions from the members?
Well, I appreciate you all. Go ahead, Sammy.
I was gonna say that, I'm astounded, really. I didn't know a lot of these figures. And, I have nothing but congratulations to you and the staff that you have with you. And what you all do, I know it takes a special person to do this. And Appomattox County's lucky to have you.
I appreciate that so much. I really do. I do have a wonderful team, so.
Reverend Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to echo that. I've seen you in action, and you're such an asset to our community, and we appreciate everything you do for our young people.
I appreciate that. I do have my contact information up here as well as where I got my data from. And I do also want to let you all know, in addition to my work in CSA, I've been also working with some wonderful gentlemen in my office on the opioid abatement program. And we do have a resolution that will be coming to you all the next meeting, and hopefully some more information on some of the efforts that we as a community are going to be making towards reducing substance use in the community. So, all right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I think we can move to 5A. This utility easement, set up a public hearing. Is there an additional thing you want to say about that, Ms. Adams?
Nothing other than Chief Garrett brought me a request that they want to put underground electricity to the training center. And in order to do that, we need to grant them this easement. And per county attorney, we have to hold a public hearing. So I need for you to just schedule or authorize staff to advertise a public hearing for next month.
Okay, what is that date?
It is April, is it 20? Let me see.
Hey, 17th.
17th.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So is there a motion to schedule a public hearing on the utility easement for Monday, April 17th at 7 o'clock?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we hold a public hearing on the easement request from the fire department at the next board meeting on April 20th.
Second.
Motion made and second. Discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I believe I said April 20th. The next meeting is April 17th.
That's right, yeah. I missed that number. I think, let's see,
You don't have to go by the time, you can start it.
we can start beforehand. All right. Okay, let us enter into our public hearing for tonight. First one being amendment of the Office of Building Inspections Enforcement of State Building Code Ordinance. A duly advertised public hearing has been scheduled for the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors to receive comments and consider proposed amendments to Appomattox County Code, Chapter 19.2-1, Office of Building Inspections. Specifically, the amendments update the code to enforce provisions of the 2018 Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code, including the use of the 2018 International Building Code, Appendix Q of the 2018 International Residential Code, and the 2017 National Electric Code. Anyone here to speak in regards to this public hearing on the amendment to the Office of the Building Inspection? Anyone here to address it at all?
Nobody signed up.
Okay. All right. We'll have a discussion among the board about adoption of the amendment. Is there a motion to pass it?
Mr. Chairman, just be clear, it's my understanding that this is to bring us in concert with the 2018 changes in the Virginia Code?
Two things, to bring this up to the current code, which is the 2018, we still reference the 2009 code in our ordinance, and also to adopt Appendix Q. Appendix Q has to do with tiny houses. Right now, we don't have a provision for our building inspector to inspect and approve tiny houses. And so pursuant to the building code, you specifically have to adopt, or the building official would like to be able to require a permit on tiny houses, so that we know they're constructed safely. And so that's what that Appendix Q language is about.
All right. Okay, is there a motion?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance updating the building and inspection codes.
Motion duly made, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next is the public hearing on amendment to change Spout Spring polling place location address. A duly advertised public hearing has been scheduled for the Appomattox County Board of Supervisors to receive comments and consider proposed amendment to Appomattox County Code, Chapter 3.2-12, boundaries and polling places. Specifically, the amendment changes subsection B, Spout Spring Precinct, to polling places by deleting 218 Ruatan Lane, Spout Spring, Virginia, and adding 172 Ruatan Lane, Spout Spring, Virginia. The polling places will continue to be referred to as the Spout Spring Ruatan Building. Some people like Ruatan, some like Ruatan. Is anyone here to address this? Okay. Thank you, Ace. Any discussion for board members concerning this? Is there a motion then to approve this?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the change in the voting precinct location at Sprout Spring from 218 Ruritan Lane to 172 Ruritan Lane.
Motion duly made, is there a second? All right. Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, under action items is the county SNAP fund. And you have before you, please consider transfer by consent $18,647.04 from the county SNAP fund, high school renovation bonds, to the general fund and appropriate the following: $18,647.04, part of the Appomattox County High School renovation 2022. balance in the SNAP fund. Oh, well, that's a different one. We'll take this one first. Is there a motion to approve $18,647.04 for the high school renovation bonds?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is that a second? Discussion. We have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips? Reverend Jones? Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Now, next is the balance in the SNAP fund. Please transfer by consent $72,362.99 from the general fund to the county SNAP fund and appropriate the following. In category 8103-8003, Appomattox High School renovation, 2022, $72,362.99. And this is in regard to filed invoices paid to Jameson Lewis Construction. Funds are necessary to pay the filed invoices due to the issuance of cost of the bond in the amount of $163,277.15 being deducted from the 10 million, excuse me. Any discussion on it? Is there a motion to approve the $72,362.99? Is that second?
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hogan.
I just wondered if, rather than taking this out of the general fund, would it be more suitable to come out of the capital improvement fund or from leftover funds that the school has left over at the end of the year? I don't know how that would work if they don't have it yet because we're not at the end of the fiscal year.
All right, Ms. Adams.
We do have the audited, FY '22 audited amount that you will be transferring at the end of this fiscal year. They'll be requesting it. So what would be appropriate would be to go ahead, it's in the general fund now where these funds are. So go ahead and make the motion to transfer it from the general fund, and at the time that you reappropriate the funds to the school, you can reduce the amount at that time.
Reduce if need be.
By the 72,000.
Any other questions? All right, we had a motion and had a second. Further discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Hips. Reverend Jones. Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next is Appomattox Volunteer Fire Department request. Chief Jonathan Garrett is requesting the board's consideration to waive the building permit fee for a temporary power source and to construct the containers for fire training. The total cost of the building permit is $251.26.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Hogan.
I make a motion to waive the permit fee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips? Reverend Jones? Mr. Hinkle?
Aye.
Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next is building officials' request, I like it, request.
It's understood.
Excuse me. Attached for the board's consideration is a letter from Mr. Lonnie Hamlet, building official, requesting that Mr. Michael Strode be refunded for permit number 220314 in the amount of $906.51. Mr. Strode has decided that the cost is too much right now and plans to build the home within 2 years. His plan now is to build just a garage with an apartment over the top and live in that until he builds a house. He will submit a new construction application with plans for the garage with an apartment. Is there a motion to approve Mr. Hamlet's request? Is there a second? Discussion? All right, let's see. We have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips? Reverend Jones? Mr. Hinkle? Mr. Hogan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next is special permit application request, Chippy Hippie Vintage Market. At- Attached for the board's review is a special event permit application from Monica Evans for a Chippy Hippie Vintage Market to be held on April the 29th, 2023 at 3154 James River Road in Gladstone, Virginia. This is a spring market featuring vintage and homemade artisans. There will be a food on site, and no alcohol will be served. The event will be open to the public at 10 a.m. and closed to the public at 4 p.m. The zoning administrator, building official, fire marshal, sheriff, public safety director, and the county administrator has reviewed the application for compliance. So all of the necessary parties that need to sign off on this has done so. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan?
I think she had the same event last year. I didn't hear any feedback. I don't, as far as I know, there weren't any problems. I don't know if anybody else heard anything.
I didn't. That being said, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is that second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Next is resolution in support of the Virginia America 250 Commission recitals. Attached for the board's consideration is a resolution in support of Virginia America 250 Commission recitals. The Appomattox Tourism Committee has agreed to serve as the local committees for the America 250th. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Is that second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Committee appointments, Horizon Board appointment. Attached for the board's review is a motion letter from the Horizon Behavioral Health Board requesting that we recommend another board appointee. The Horizon Behavior Health Board denied Appomattox County's recommendation to appoint Ms. Ashley Sandman due to the potential for perceived or actual conflict of interest. And as far as I'm concerned, I've never heard such hogwash. I'll say it like that. I'm asking Mrs. Adams, our county administrator, that let's get on the phone and have a teleconference with this person that's in charge of the Horizon Health Board, because we know for a fact there's other people on the board that has this pretty much the same, if you want to call it, conflict of interest. And I don't know if anybody more qualified than what we had here tonight talking. What's the rest of the board's thoughts on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle?
I would agree with you, what you said, and that we should push back on them.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know more details.
Mhm.
So what?
That's
can you
what
give
we
me
want to
more
have that.
information?
Yes,
That's okay, the letters.
yes. Okay, Ms. Adams, you set this up, let us know.
Yes, sir, I will.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could
Mr.
just ask,
Mr.
what is their perceived conflict of interest? Is it because she's our CSA, runs our CSA program, or something else?
It wasn't communicated, so I think that's why we need to discuss it.
Okay.
It may have been, she was a prior employee at that organization. But I
And-
don't know why that would
Yeah. It would seem
be
to
a
me
conflict,
that would
current
enhance,
conflict of interest.
wouldn't you think? Look like to me, that would enhance it. Oh, well.
And Appomattox currently does not have a representative on the Horizon Board. Ms. Spiegel serves as a representative, but not for Appomattox. She's a community-appointed rep to the board by the Horizon Board of Directors.
All right. Next, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approval of all bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, and fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda on request of any board member prior to the vote on the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in order in which they were removed from the consent agenda immediately following consideration of the consent agenda. Does anyone have any items they'd like to discuss, or have a clarification on that we have before us? Well, hearing none, is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda as is?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda as is.
Is there a second? Comments? We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Hips. Reverend Jones. Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Mr. Latchney.
I actually do have something this evening.
All right.
As you may or may not recall, back in 2020, when Mr. Johnny Combs left the Parks, the Appomattox County Parks Department, a 1.46 acre parcel of land on Swan Road.
Oh, yeah.
We've been approached with somebody interested in purchasing that, and there were some questions raised. You know, do we have a duty? Should we advertise that we're willing to sell it? So what we need from y'all tonight is sort of an idea. Are you open to selling this land? If we are, do we want to solicit offers? Do we want this particular person that approached us to give us an offer first? Do you want to make it available to other purchasers? Or do we just want to sit on it?
If we said on the only, and I think, Mr. Hogan, you the one that said this. Is it any value to that property with the forestry or the trees?
Well, I guess I'm not the one to ask that question. I don't know what the trees are worth. I just know that this particular lot that was given to the county, about half of it is got a pipeline going through it. So I don't know whether it would be usable for anything.
And I speculate the value is to the adjacent property owners. I would assume from the adjacent property owners may have value to you. I don't know that it's value to anybody else. But if the board is all right with it, what we'll do is the person that approached us, we'll just ask them to submit a proposal, a written contract, I mean, an offer, just like a real estate transaction, and then we'll bring that offer to you.
Well, I do know that there's more than one person interested. There's somebody else that expressed an interest back when we first got the property, and it wasn't him.
Can you reach out to that person? Ask them if
I
there's an
did.
offer to-
I did.
Just tell everybody to give us an offer, and then we'll bring them all to the board, and you decide what you
Yeah,
want to do.
I don't think we need to keep it. I don't think it's a use to the county. It was originally given to the
Parks.
recreation department,
Parks and
right?
Recreation for a park.
I mean, it's not big enough
It's
for a
not big
park, and
enough for a park.
it's, so I don't see any purpose in the county keeping it. Yeah, I'm in favor of selling it.
Mr. Hips.
It is, but I haven't heard anything else, and it's been at the courthouse, it's now registered in our name. And we would, if we sold it, it's gonna affect the price, but we would just give a quick deed.
Should we advertise that or just,
Legally not required to.
okay.
I mean, if we know a couple of people interested, just tell them to submit written offers, and then the board can decide if either of the offers is accepted.
Board's consensus on that to do just that?
Would we have to have a public hearing to dispose of public property?
Once you get the offer and let's say you get two offers and you accept offer A, then before we could close on it, we'd have to have a public hearing. Yes.
We don't have to advertise that we're gonna sell it?
No, you just have to advertise a public hearing before you actually transfer it.
Well, I'm for putting it back on the tax roll.
Okay.
So I guess Ms. Adams needs some guidance from us. How do we want to
Get,
I mean, the
I
way it
feel-
normally works in real life, let's forget where the county, if you own a piece of real estate, and somebody said, are you interested in selling it? Your response is, make me an offer. And in real estate, an offer is a written offer, a contract with a signature on it, that all we have to do is accept it, sign it, and accept it, it becomes a binding contract. So that's, I mean, if you're doing a private transaction, everybody understands how this works. The fact that we're the seller doesn't change that. So what we should tell whoever, the two people we know that are interested, if anybody else is interested, make us an offer, submit us a written offer that we could, next meeting or the meeting in May, whatever, come out, but have a closed session discussion, have a vote, and sign it. And then that would be a binding real estate contract.
do we need that in the form of a motion?
No, I think just guidance is
Consensus.
all we're
Yeah.
Okay.
For the sake of transparency, shouldn't we post it on our website or somewhere?
Well, we can,
Just-
it doesn't
okay.
hurt to run a little ad in the paper. County owns 1.4, Mon Lane
Okay.
is accepting written offers for the sale of that property. It doesn't hurt anything to advertise it. Then nobody screams, well, I didn't know, I might have bought it.
Yeah.
It might not be a bad idea.
Okay. You okay, Ms. Adams, with that?
I feel, yeah.
All right. Ms. Adams, administrative report.
Yes, you have the report before you, as I have done in the past. It's mostly data from the departments, talking about the numbers of the February caseload, since this is the March meeting. I did want to notate a couple of things under finance, that's under the county administrator section. And we met with the insurance broker, and we're looking at a 9.9% increase in our insurance this year. And based on the school's report, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. So what we asked Mr. Rowe to do is go ahead and seek competitive pricing, just to make sure that we have the best plan for that we are being competitive. So those will be in rather shortly, because by the end of May, I think it is, we have to go ahead and sign up for whichever insurance. So we'll be hearing something soon, and I'll be sending out an email to that effect. There's some notes on the cybersecurity and IT, some of the changes we're making. We're going to be updating the website. We're going to be adding some new software for email and using Microsoft 365. So that's going to be occurring within the next 3 to 6 months. Also, we're looking at cybersecurity, and ACE has actually talked to the Homeland Security, and they offer free services to come out and see if there are any breaches or anything, so he's working on getting that scheduled. And then I've got a note on the school construction, basically what the loan was, and the 20-year loan, what the interest is, and the cost of closing that we stated earlier. The salary study for employees, that's underway, and so they've reached out, and they're putting in classifications, they're revamping job descriptions, and we were lucky because we got a reduced cost on that. We piggybacked off of a contract that Charlotte County had, and so that's only $8,750 instead of $20,000 that we originally thought for salary study. They've done it for other localities, so they had good references, so we feel good about where that would be leading us. And maintenance, we had interviews, and Jeff has identified a couple of individuals that could fill those positions. I did send out an email about him hiring that third position. I've got a consensus from the board. There are a couple people I haven't heard from, so if you have any issues with that, let me know tonight, because I think Jeff will be making contact probably tomorrow. And the other thing is animal control. We have conducted interviews for that. We are making an offer to an individual, and those animal control officers are currently taking on shelter operations. They're dividing the task, so we're looking at maybe a reorganization of those responsibilities. Are there any questions?
No, but I like seeing businesses visited in February 8th. So I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, that's, we've kind of tasked Ann Dixon with going out, visiting the local businesses, finding out if they have needs. We're limited as to what we can do. Most of the businesses are located in the town. But we're hoping that, by having that exposure, if there are needs, we can identify them before there's some type of closure or anything.
Any additional questions for Ms. Adams? Well, thank you for that report, Ms. Adams.
You're welcome.
Next is reports at financial items such as Albemarle County High School open house for PPEA building project. And that's going to be March the 26th at 3 p.m. Now, I guess this will be held in the new portion, or the cafeteria or auditorium, or where we'll meet at, congregate together
Yeah, it's in the new part.
in the new, oh, yeah.
the invites in the back book.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, supervisor concerns. Mr. Hips. Reverend Jones. Mr. Hinkle. Mr. Hogan.
I guess the only concern I have is nothing we individually can do about it, but, from Ms. Sandman's presentation, it's sad that our society has gotten to the point where this many kids need help because the family structure has fallen apart. And we spend 6 figures every month on that at least 6 figures every month when we pay the bills on that category. And I know that we get reimbursed some of that from the state, but it's just it's a shame we got to spend that kind of money to keep kids in their home and keep kids in the schools. And I think it's a sad reflection of our society where we're at.
Well said. I'll fill y'all in on, I think everybody got a letter from, up in your district, Mr. Hip, Cindy Hall. Oh, all right. Well, lo and behold, I got a phone call Saturday. Actually, this came out of my district. Off of Cup Creek Road. About hunting dogs, reflected going back to what you had said somewhat, Mr. Hinkle, about hunting dogs running loose after hunting season has expired. And these hunting dogs, most of them, fit the category of they got too old or something done happened to them, so the owner/owners will take the collars off of them and let them stray. Well, this particular residence acquired one of those dogs, and it tore into one of the owner's dogs. I told her this has been an ongoing thing. We try to do what we can do, but it's not a whole lot that we can do. However, Ms. Adams has expressed that maybe there is something we can do, and she is looking into a ordinance that of some nature. And I know it's going to have to be very, very particular, very, very cautious, but at least something maybe could be done. And the second thing from this citizen was, just like we talked about at our last meeting, road trash. It's just gotten out of hand. There's no question about it. the deputies don't want to, or doesn't have anybody that will, I should say it like that, want to stand guard. I talked to a guy that works for VDOT and asked him, I said, I know VDOT supplies, goes around, picks up a lot of trash. It's a big county. It's a big state. They got to do this, that, and the other. I said, but what's the possibility of Camp 9 inmates? And maybe a guard from over there. And, you know, he's going to look into it. I hope something can be done, because it's a shame. And then she also expressed, notice I said she, also expressed that, is it in this, I thought we addressed his signs. I know we tightened some up on it, catching somebody, throwing over litter. I know we did that, but I don't know about signs. And then if we did put up signs, are we responsible for them? You know, so just something I want to pass on to you. Anybody else have anything? Next meeting down is April 17th, and upon saying that, Mr. Hinkle,